All right, today we're going to dig into something pretty fascinating. The shared playbook between two leaders you might not think have much in common. The CEO and the general.
It's a great question, right? But what if we've got it completely backwards? What if I told you that all those revolutionary new ideas shaking up the corporate world, things like speed, agility, empowering your people, what if those were actually perfected centuries ago on the battlefield? Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so first up, we've got to understand the old way of doing things, the model that pretty much ran the show for over 100 years, the traditional top-down pyramid of power.
For most of modern history, big organizations, we're talking companies, armies, you name it, they were all built just like this pyramid. Everything was designed for stability and control. The goal was to take advantage of economies of scale in a world that, well, moved at a much more predictable pace. All the big decisions? They were made at the very top and then methodically passed down through the layers below.
And this slide just lays out the problem perfectly, doesn't it? You can see how information has to slowly, painstakingly crawl its way up the chain. And at every single level, it gets filtered, maybe a little distorted. By the time it actually gets to the decision makers at the top, the picture they're seeing might be incomplete or just flat out wrong. And then the orders have to flow all the way back down again, step by tedious step. It's just so rigid, so slow, and totally prone to error.
And, there was a real human cost to this system. It was perfected by a guy named Frederick Winslow Taylor, and his whole philosophy basically treated workers like they were just interchangeable parts in a giant machine. You weren't expected to think. You were just supposed to follow incredibly detailed instructions. It was a low-trust workplace with almost no autonomy. All the brainpower of the organization was concentrated right at the very top.
But then, everything changed. The information revolution came roaring in, and it forced a complete, radical rethinking of that old pyramid model.
All of a sudden, the world just accelerated. Speed and adaptability weren't just nice-to-haves, they were the absolute keys to survival. Think about it. A new car model that used to take 6 or 7 years to design was now hitting the market in under 2. Markets weren't big monoliths anymore. They shattered into countless little customer niches. That slow, plodding pyramid, it just couldn't keep up. It was a dinosaur in a world of mammals.
So what did corporations do? They started to flatten out. You can see it right here. They just started hacking away layers of middle management, trying to connect the top directly to the bottom. The whole idea was to push responsibility down, to give the folks on the front lines more authority to make decisions on the spot, closer to the actual customer and the actual problem.
And this led to an even more out there idea, the virtual corporation. The thinking went something like this. Why do we have to do everything inside our own company? A company should figure out the one thing it does better than anyone else on the planet, that's its core competency, and then just outsource everything else to partners who are the best at those things. So responsibility wasn't just pushed down, it was pushed outward.
And really, technology is what made all this possible. Just take a look at the Wal-Mart system. In the old days, a store manager would tell a regional warehouse what they needed, who would then tell corporate, and so on. But Wal-Mart used tech to link the cash register, the point of sale, directly to the supplier. That real-time sales data just leaped over the entire middle hierarchy. It created a system that was so much faster and way more efficient. It's a perfect, real-world example of a flatter organization in action.
But here's the kicker. Here's the big twist. While corporate America was patting itself on the back for this revolution in the 80s and 90s, the world's most effective armies have been doing it this way for generations.
And I'm not kidding, this is not a new idea. Go all the way back to 1806. Napoleon organized his massive army into these independent corps that could operate on their own, letting him react way faster than his opponents. Fast forward to World War I, German stormtroopers used these decentralized tactics to probe for weak spots and punch through the stalemate of the trenches. And then, of course, in 1940, the Blitzkrieg combined that whole philosophy with new tech, the radio and the tank, to achieve just shocking results.
The core idea behind all of this, the philosophy, has a name. It's called Auftragstaktik, which basically translates to mission-type tactics. So what does that mean? Well, instead of micromanaging every little detail, a senior commander gives their subordinate a crystal-clear mission, the what and the why, but they give them the freedom and the resources to figure out the how on their own. It's a system that's built on a foundation of extreme trust and empowering initiative at the lowest possible level.
And this brings us right to the heart of the matter. It's the fundamental dilemma that every single leader, whether they're in a boardroom or on a battlefield, has to wrestle with. That constant tug of war between control and chaos.
This table here really lays it all out nice and simple. A centralized system? Yeah, it gives you speed and efficiency if the goal is clear and the world around you is stable. But the big drawback is that it's brittle. It can completely shatter when something unexpected happens. On the other hand, a decentralized system is way more adaptive and resilient. It can handle chaos. But the trade-off is that it can be unpredictable, sometimes even messy, and definitely harder to control. There's no single right answer here.
And you know, even in the military, an organization that absolutely prizes decentralized execution, some things just have to be controlled from the center. I mean, you can't have different units making up their own overall strategy, right? You need centralized command for really complex stuff, like coordinating artillery and air support. And in our modern world, you have political factors. They call it the CNN effect, where a single tactical mistake can blow up into a huge strategic problem, which of course creates pressure for more control from the top. And yet, despite all that, the fundamental lesson remains. This quote right here from a U.S. Army field manual. It just says it all. When things get chaotic and unpredictable, pushing decision-making down isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely essential for survival. Hesitating, waiting for orders from on high, that just leads to inertia. And on the battlefield, inertia is fatal.
So this leaves every leader with this impossible question. What's actually the greater risk? A slow, carefully thought-out decision from headquarters that might just show up too late to matter, or a fast, decisive action from someone right there on the front line that, well, might turn out to be a mistake? The truth is, the answer is different every single time. It depends entirely on the situation.
And that really brings us to our final thought for today. We live in an age of endless data, right? We have more information at our fingertips than ever before. So maybe the real challenge for modern organizations, whether they're corporate or military, isn't about getting more control. Maybe it's about having the wisdom to know what to let go of. The true art of leadership in the 21st century, well, it might just be figuring out exactly what to control and what you need to trust to the people on the ground.